Athletic Director Yu from D1 Ticker from the 2017 NCAA Convention here in Nashville, Tennessee. We have a team building an ideal administrative team. Interesting stories, I think, here. David Williams, Vice Chancellor of Athletics and Director of Athletics at Vanderbilt here in Nashville, of course, and Blake James from the University of Miami. You guys were both internal candidates when you became ADs. David, you had been with the institution since 2000. Blake, you were on your second tenure at Miami in senior leadership. So maybe that's a little different than how a new athletic director would have assessed their team, graded their team, taken a look at what pieces they might have wanted to add or transition within the team. Blake, I want to start with you. Walk me through how you already knew the DNA of Miami and how that impacted you and how you ended up building the senior team out in subsequent years at Miami.
Well, again, as you said, being there, you have a great understanding for what's going on. And you don't understand everything until you're really in the chair. I've said that often, until you have that time sitting in the chair, you don't really realize everything that comes to the athletic director's desk. But being a part of the senior leadership team, you have a good understanding of the work ethic, the personalities, the culture of the department. As someone who's been the internal candidate twice and become the athletic director previously at Maine and now at Miami, it's a situation where I've said on the interview both times, you're doing the job. The job is the interview. And I think that's one thing that I've said to anyone who's ever the interim is take day one of your interim as your job interview. And for me, it just was really assessing what was there, having a good understanding for the team we had, and then working at what are the pieces of the puzzle that I'm missing, and how do we find those pieces to give us the picture that we want.
And David, you had been engaged with athletics, but your view maybe of the department was different than Blake's when he became the athletic director. Were there any analysis tools or methodologies you used to understand maybe a SWOT of your actual people in the department?
Well, I think as Blake said, you want to sort of get an ideal of what I consider to be the DNA at a place. Mm-hmm. And so I think that for me, I don't know if there were any tools other than your own assessment, but part of that assessment, having been a part of the university, and in particular a part of senior administration of the university, I really wanted to test the concept of that senior management team and how they fit and viewed the university mission. And so if I was looking at someone, maybe the only tool is, I guess one way to look at it is, as the former general counsel of the university and in charge of a number of other things, if you were in the senior management of athletics and we didn't even know who you were, mm-hmm. that said something very seriously about your commitment and your involvement with the university as a whole. And so part of mine was, who already understands what our mission is, and how does the mission of athletics sort of fit into that, and are you a part of that? Because I think some of the times you have to be very careful of the separation issue. And so I think that for me, that was my first thing is, who understands what the mission of the university is and how we fit into that and supports that?
And those were just one-on-one conversations?
I think there were one-on-one conversations, and I think they were observations, and they were sort of a historical thing, what you've seen. But yeah, a lot of it had to do with just sitting down, talking to people, and my view of this is I call it the 30-day or the 90-day rule, is in the sense that I'm not going to run into a place and say, okay, you got to go. But after 90 days, you own them. After 90, for the first 90 days, they belong to somebody else. Mm-hmm. But after 90 days, you own them. And so over that period of time, you have to make those decisions.
And in your case, Blake, when you're building out a team, and you talked about the pieces maybe you didn't have, is it more an observation and then a strategy of here's what we need, or here's who I know in this industry could fit a role really well, and I craft something for them? How do you balance those two things?
I think it's a tricky balance, because I do think you have to look at what are the things you need. From my perspective, it's looking at what are the things you need, and there's great people that I know out there that, given the staff that I had, just wouldn't have been a fit for our staff. And I don't want to bring someone in to force them into something that maybe isn't right in their sweet spot. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was really looking at what are the things that we need as a department. And again, having really worked at the university for a number of years, and I think to David's point, having people that really love the university. and want to be a part of the vision of not only the athletic department but the university is key. And so looking for what we need in people and then going out and really being able to find those people and bring them into the team.
What would you define the culture of your department as? If you had to boil down what the culture of your department is about, what is it? And really the follow-up question to that, Blake, is you're talking about hiring into the department and, of course, fit. How do you marry those two, right?
Yeah, I think for us it's I'm probably saying something that most will say, it's creating the excellent student athlete experience. And so whether that's we talk about building champions in academics, athletics, and life. Well, how do you really make that happen? And it's getting people that really buy into that and really think about that in all the decisions we make. And so at anytime there's a decision that's made, whether it's something that I'm involved in or not, if I can sit down with that person and really understand how did this best enhance our student athlete experience, it's a decision we're going to go forward. It might not always be the decision I would have made, and it might be one that I say, all right, we need to modify that for this reason or that. But it's really creating a culture of an excellent experience for our student athletes.
Both of your all's institutions are really esteemed academic locations of higher learning. When we talk fit, how do you judge somebody's understanding of what it's like to operate in that environment?
Yeah, well, that's key for us. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and when you started to talk about when I took over, I mean, that was very important because, we sit in a situation where, one, you have to remember you're in a university setting. I always say the difference between us and the pros are we are attached to a university. And first and foremost is the goals, the mission of that university. And so if you're not about the academics, then you're not going to fit into our culture. It's as simple as that because you don't fit into the university's culture. So the first thing in hiring coaches and hiring staff is I'm trying to get a feeling, where does academics fit on this? So I always say, how best not to get hired in my department is let me know that graduations is not important. Mm-hmm. Let me know that the grades of the kids are not important. Let me know that that you're trying to find that major where you can hire the kid. That's the easiest way not to get a job in my department.
When you guys are hiring head coaches or staff members for that matter, who maybe aren't at a institution at the same peer group as your alls are right now, is it APR? Is it graduation rate? Is it team GPA? Is it your understanding of maybe your undergrad was at an Ivy or something? What are those pieces if you're not at a school currently or the previous school that you're hiring them from that has that same fit or has that same profile?
For me, it's chemistry and them. I think to David's point, them understanding. It may not have been a situation where their numbers are where we'd like to see them at, but their resources and their situation may be different. I've said to our fans, I've said to our coaches, we'll get any kid into the University of Miami that's going to be successful academically at Miami. That doesn't mean every recruit's going to be academically successful at Miami, but kids that are going to be successful at Miami, that we believe, given the structure and support that we have, they'll be successful there. Those are kids that will get in, and so I want a coach and I want administrators who are going to have that drive to see these kids get their degree and do well academically. It's important to me that our kids are not only graduating, but that they're getting a degree that's going to help them do whatever it is they want to do in life.
I want to go back to the culture question for you.
Yeah, the culture is a very interesting piece because I always say that when I'm looking for people and we're interviewing, I'm trying to deal with the fit. And the fit is the culture fit. And once again, I have to say you can't separate out the culture of the athletic department from the culture of the university. I mean, it has to be together. But, it's interesting. There is this component, and I think Blake has said that real well. I didn't go to an Ivy school. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't go to a private school. I'm a state school kid. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, when I went off to Northern Michigan, which certainly no one would think it's an Ivy school, the goal was to come home with a degree. Mm-hmm. And so I had that in me. I've always had that in me. I was a school teacher for 10 years in the Detroit system where the goal was success. It was moving forward. And so you look for that. Culture is really, and this is one thing about culture. You also have to look at do you possess the culture? Do you possess the ability to accept and be a part of the culture? And so you have to sit there and really figure out, what is it that you want out of this? What is it that you're willing to put into this? And, I always say that, sports is a very interesting thing. And I love the sort of thing like, okay, do you want to win? Yeah, we want to win. And it's like, but no one went to the other locker room and told them, and they were like, well, we really don't want to win today. So it's who wants to win more? Who's willing to give more? So when you start to think about that, is how much are you willing to put into reaching what our goals are? Now, let me explain to you what the goals are. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. How much are you willing to put in the fact that, and as Blake said, it's the student athlete experience. It's more than just graduation. I always say graduating from my school with a 2.0 and having a year of eligibility left means you got to transfer, because I can't get you into graduate school there. And so let's start from the beginning, recognizing it's not only graduation, it's how you graduate. It's what you major in. It's what you want to do when you leave. And everybody in the department needs to be a part of that.
For those who are watching this who may be in an institution where the symbiotic relationship between campus and athletics, the culture may not be the same, but there's certainly the intent for that to be the case. One strategic way they can think about engaging the academic side of the campus or others on campus to achieve that goal would be what?
Again, I think it's just being involved in campus. I mean, you have to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be a part of campus, and that's with the students and with the staff. As David said earlier, if your senior leadership team isn't known by leadership on campus, something's missing, in my opinion. That's something where we need to be viewed as is the integral part of the university. We're not on an island. We're part of a great university. I've often said athletics is the front porch. You open the door and see all the great things that are going on within the university. But I think it's important to have your department involved in campus. And so from the senior leadership to having SAC be a recognized student organization on campus. It's great to have that group of leaders over in athletics, but they're great leaders. Get them involved with the student organizations on campus. And so all those things to really intertwine who you are with the university, to me, is something that you can, I guess, make those moves, be a part of campus events. When there's a ribbon cutting at the School of Business, I'm at that ribbon cutting. When there's something new being announced, a fundraiser, trying to be a part of those things for the different parts of campus. To me, those are all things that you do to try to create those relationships and the goodwill and obviously just that collegial environment.
Yeah, Blake nailed it. I mean, you have to be a part of the university, and I think sometimes you have to dig into it. And for example, I pressured, I shouldn't say pressured, but I pushed and finally, and I make a report to the faculty senate once a year. And now you don't want to go in there and say, well, let me tell you, we're doing pretty bad over there. So you said, look, I want to walk in there and I want to hit them with stuff that, like I said, it's sort of drop the mic and walk out the room. It's like, you have any questions? No, you guys are doing great over there. That's the goal of it. And so you want that. But, I think I have an interesting perspective because I am a tenured faculty member too. And so I know the faculty members, and I think that's very important. Engage the faculty as much as you can, and staff. And so, we make it a point of making sure that we as a department engage them. But then I also tell our student athletes, your goal is to be seen as more than an athlete. And so you need to perform too. And the greatest thing for me is when a faculty member or a staff person stops me and says something very, very good about one of the student athletes. And it's almost like you kind of wink and say, so were you expecting something other than that? And then okay, it's working. Or when you have someone that has a committee and they call and they say, hey, we'd like to have so-and-so from athletics on that committee. Oh, yeah, fine, whatever it takes. I want them involved in that. If we're having a land use thing and we have one going on our campus, there's a person from athletics. And here's a trick that I found. Many times they're going to want Blake or I on.
Right. Y'all can't be everywhere all the time.
And you shouldn't be.
Right.
In other words, you got to send those other people out because, strangely enough, they all know Blake and I. But I need them to know the other people, and I know and other people. And we have a leadership academy. And I always put 1 or 2 people in there. And it's amazing. I mean, I had a guy who had worked for the department longer than anybody there. And he went through the leadership academy, and he said he'd come back every year. And it's interesting because I got a guy in there now, and he's there right now because they meet on Thursdays. And the things he came back, he said, I've been here like 30 years, and I didn't know so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. We got to break that down.
Yeah, very good. We got to get Blake out of here.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Blake. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.